An introduction to watercolor techniques. Artists use watercolors to create all kinds of art, from impressionistic landscapes to intricate portraits. Keep watching to learn watercolor techniques that you can use to make your own amazing art. To get started, you will need watercolor paints, paper, brushes, a paint palette, masking or artist tape, paper towels, and water. Before you start, make sure to stretch your paper to keep it from warping. Brush the tape and both sides of the paper with water. Blot them lightly with a paper towel to soak up any puddles, and tape the paper to your work surface. Once it's dry, you're ready to paint. Start with wet paper. Add water to your paint until it's very thin, and use it before the paper dries. The paint will form soft, irregular edges. This is especially good for covering large areas. We use it here to put down an initial wash of light color. Thin your watercolors and paint on dry paper. This produces moderately or lightly pigmented areas with hard edges. Wet on dry is good for both detail work and larger areas. Here, we use it to paint our skater's skin. Wet your paper like you would for wet on wet. This time, use as little water as you can in your paint. The dry paint will make blooming effects and soft edges, but you'll have more control than with wet on wet. We use it here to form skating trails. Wet your paint just enough to be able to use it, and brush it onto dry paper. This can produce a streaky or dappled effect. Dry on dry is great for adding small, intensely colored details and textures, like in the skater's hair. Start with a broad application of light color. Once that is completely dry, add a layer of another color. Gradually apply more and more details and darker colors to develop depth and shading. Here we layer a darker blue onto the lighter green of the skater's arm. Paint the area you want to blend with a wet brush. This will reactivate any dry paint. This smooths the transition between colors, like in the skater's costume. Scrubbing lets you lighten paint that's already on paper. Rub dry paint with a wet brush and blot at it with a paper towel. Scrubbing is very hard on paper, so use it only sparingly or with resilient paper made from cotton. We use this technique here to remove excess paint near the skater's head. If you need a more gentle way to lighten paint, brush dry pigment with water and allow it to sit. Then dab it with a dry paper towel or brush to lift off the color. Here, we lift excess color from the skater's arm. If you'd like to keep part of your piece free of paint, cover it with masking fluid. Wait for it to dry completely, then paint normally. Once you're done, peel or rub off the masking fluid to reveal the paper underneath. This is great for preserving bright details, like the sparkles on our skater's costume. Salt and alcohol interact with water to make really interesting textures. Sprinkle wet paint with salt or dab at it with rubbing alcohol and allow it to dry. This will form light-colored dots and shapes. Here, we're using salt to add texture to the skater's costume. Who says you can't play with your art supplies? Load up your brush with wet paint and flick it onto the paper. Splattering makes dots and streaks that are great for starry skies and background textures. Use a straw to blow a wet dollop of paint along your paper. This is a fun way to make branched organic shapes that resemble trees and distant rivers. We use it here to show the skater's fast movement. Simple watercolor techniques like these combine to make beautiful art. Do you want to learn more? Visit our blog and create your masterpiece.